right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning into the Sioux Falls Athlete Podcast. First and foremost, I wanted to say a big thank you to two of our sponsors that we have, Science Nutrition and Team How. Team How was nice enough to help us out in the very beginning with some big sponsorship with that, and that allowed us to get a new 4K camera, and I'm pretty excited about that. So Will's going to be looking pretty in 4K today, or actually, I guess technically you won't be seeing it in 4K because I don't think we're going to stream out in 4K, but the camera setup's going to be a little bit nicer today, and hopefully we can get those all around one of these times. So thank you very much for that. Definitely, if you get a chance, support both the sponsors that we have, Science Nutrition and Team How. So without further ado, I want to bring on our guest that we have today. His name is Will Powell. He was a professional football player over in Europe, and then also he started a website basically to help athletes do something that you felt like was a kind of missing in the sports world of football.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce, thanks for having me on, man.
You bet.
I love your show. I love what you're doing. And yeah, it's fun getting together with entrepreneurs and athletes in the community of Sioux Falls, right? Building up this community.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird because it's really not that different a world. I mean, I think you get anybody that's competitive, and whether you're competitive as an athlete or you're competitive as an entrepreneur, I think they're one and the same. I think it's that same kind of competitive fire. It just comes out in two different arenas, and for athletes, I think those can be done the same way.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the things that you practice and you learn in sport, your work ethic, grinding, waking up early, putting in the long hours, all of those translate directly to entrepreneurship. And if you can kind of hone those skills and implement them in your business, there's no reason why it shouldn't be successful.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird. A lot of times those same things I don't feel like are taught in school all the time, and it's weird when athletes go out there and then I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'd like to see in school some of those same attributes that you bring up in football added to the school system eventually, just to try to get a little bit better entrepreneurs, things like that. So
absolutely. I mean, I was a finance major. I did very well at USD. And when I started the business, everything I did was self-taught. I didn't really use much of the degree at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that goes back to the whole issue of like whether college is meant for most kids or not. But it's a journey. And if you're willing to learn and improve and critique yourself each and every day, then again, you're going to grow to where you need to go.
Yeah, especially, in that tech field, it's amazing to me too. When you start off college, you start off things like that, things that you're learning your freshman year. I mean, they're going to be advanced so much in the next 4 years that you're probably not even going to be using a lot of those things. So it's kind of crazy to me. But.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I'll be honest with you, my co-founder Marcus and I, we didn't know anything about the tech world when we got into this.
Sure.
We outsourced it to a group of developers overseas. We went through. We got some pretty crappy developers, and we got burned at the beginning.
Oh, I know that feeling.
I mean, because development is such a high cost. I mean, if you're not a developer yourself, you have to invest a lot of money because these programmers cost a lot of money to get your stuff done.
Right.
And so for us, it was kind of naive jumping into it, but once we got the hang of it, we found some great developers, and it's been fantastic ever since.
Awesome. So what I'd like to do now is play a little bit of a video, and then that'll get I think a lot of Will brings up a lot of his basically from the start and how everything started with Podyum. But then after that, I want to bring him back and talk just a little bit more about some of his upbringing, and then also his venture into the tech world.
Sweet.
Hey, my name is Will Powell, and I'd like to tell you about my journey towards entrepreneurship and how I co-founded Podyum, a tech startup that seeks to revolutionize how athletes and coaches find jobs and land contracts. In just 6 months of launching our pro football recruiting platform, we have over 8,000 registered athletes and coaches, in addition to 250 plus pro football teams utilizing our system. Athletes and coaches create a profile and showcase their accomplishments, where they can then apply and contact scouts, agents, and teams from across the world.
What Podyum does is redefining football and the culture that we've been growing up with our whole lives. I mean, you grow up and you say, well, after college, only less than 1% gets to play professional football. Well, that's not true because of all these professional leagues that are overseas. So with 16,000 football players graduate each year, each one of those players has a chance to play at the next level. And it may not be in the NFL, but it may be overseas. And you have an opportunity to travel the world and play the sport that you love. And who wouldn't want to do that? So this is...
I was a 3-time all-conference player at the University of South Dakota, a Division I FCS college, so I thought I had a great shot at making the NFL roster. But yet on draft day, I never received a call from a scout or a team, which was a very tough experience to go through. Yet I still wanted to pursue a pro football career, either in the arena leagues or internationally. But when I got done, I had no idea how to reach out to these teams or any scouts or any agents. Fortunately, a few months later, I was able to earn a contract where I went to play in the south of France, and then I later went on to play in Germany and Serbia, which ended up being the best 3 years of my life. When I was in Germany, I met up with my former teammate from the University of South Dakota, Marcus Sims, where we played for a top 3 team in Europe, and were 2 of the best players in Europe. And Marcus was the best, even though I hate to say he was better than me. But yet, after the season, we still couldn't get recruited by some of the top teams, and it was an incredibly frustrating experience. So it was then, in Schwäbisch Hall, Germany, where the idea for Podyum started.
We actually got like a dishwashing stuff now.
Yeah, dishwasher moving up in the room.
Yeah.
This is where the idea of the Podyum was created. It was literally sitting on this couch.
You guys should re-sit on it. I think I was right here. You were like right over there, and then you're like, let's just start.
The Podyum, that's where it started, in the attic in Schwäbisch Hall, Germany. We knew it was a big idea, and we knew we had to act on it, and we just went for it. We were kind of shooting in the dark. We didn't have any real plans of how we were going to make it happen. We just knew that we were 2 young guys that were going to do anything possible to make it happen.
And I have to say, we've made numerous mistakes in developing Podyum. But we've learned from those mistakes and have established an international brand that is revolutionizing the football market. The Podyum team consists of myself as CEO, Marcus as COO, Joe, who's the business development director, and Sam, who handles all of our accounting, in addition to 5 full-time developers in Serbia, where I actually played a few years back, who are killing it for us, and we couldn't be any happier with their pace of development. And here at their office in Novi Sad, you'll see Roscoe Jokic, our CTO, who actually played for the Novi Sad Gat Dukes, Saleh, Roscoe, or Big Roscoe, and Sasha. The only person we're missing is Yelena. And I can't forget about John Custer, Podyum's journalist who's telling all the stories of our athletes and coaches. And we now have 4 interns with us for the summer who are helping us spread Podyum's name across the nation and are gaining some real valuable business experience in the process. We are live. I wanted to introduce the 2017 Podyum interns here. We got a great crew of guys. We're working hard. We're in Mr. Quainton's office right now at the moment.
I think I just wanted to get involved with Podyum because it's just a fun time. It's such a cool idea, and I love the vision that we have. And I'm working on, organizing our players on our platform, and then also contacting college coaches and trying to get them involved in our network.
Riley Donovan, Casson, Minnesota. Right now, I just graduated. I'm going to be playing 1 more season with the Yotes. Got 1 left. Very excited. With Podyum, I've been contacting college coaches, reached out to different players, and then I run the Twitter account.
So a lot of people are really missing out on opportunities that they've never even heard of, and Podyum puts it right in front of your face. You don't need an agent, but you can have an agent, and you're the person on Podyum marketing yourself to other teams. So we're shifting the power over to the players, and you guys are the ones that are in control of your future. So.
Podyum is a thriving example that dreams can manifest into reality, with a lot of hard work and perseverance, and a cause worthy of improving people's lives. I ask that you share this video, follow us at the Podyum, and help us continue to make dreams a reality.
Awesome. That who shot that? Was that you?
Yeah,
mostly?
yeah,
Man.
yeah, I shot it
So is
all,
that like
yeah.
a little passion, a little side thing, or is
Yeah.
that starting to be more of a something that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, well, I never thought I'd be getting into videography and video production when we started Podium, but to kind of kick off our entire business, Marcus and I we hired 2 videographers. We went over to Europe and we filmed a 10-episode documentary. Ended up getting over 1 million views on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
It really told the story of football over there, and ever since that, I fell in love. It's something that I'm trying to get better at. I haven't mastered the videography part by any means, but I'm learning, and there's really not a better hobby than doing video.
Yeah, it's weird that, like you said, once you get into hobbies like that, it kind of takes over a little bit, and it's fun just to try to each time make yourself a little bit better. So,
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about where you grew up, family stuff, and then moving on to I know you played at USD, and then eventually ended up playing overseas. So, talk to me about early career and early life. So.
Yeah. So I'm born in Minneapolis, moved to Sioux Falls when I was 1 year old with my family. I got 2 older brothers, both football players, and then a younger sister. And then, my parents are from Minnesota and Virginia, respectively. But grew up in South Dakota, ended up going to O'Gorman High School. My family is very Catholic, so I'm a good old Catholic boy. But, wanted to play Division I football my whole life. And I actually, in high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. I did basketball, football, track. And I think that really set the stage for my football career in college. A lot of time now in bigger states where they only let you play 1 sport, I had the benefit of playing 3, and I felt like that made me a better athlete come college. But went to USD, absolutely loved it. I ended up starting as a true freshman, ended up playing both ways as a true freshman, but then went on to just play receiver the next 3 years. Had a great career, ended up being the leading receiver in the history of USD, and just completely blessed and grateful forever for what USD did for me and for my football career. And then, as I said in the video, I tried to make the NFL and didn't make it. I ran a really slow 40, and I had a history of a lot of injuries, and that was an absolute no-no. And I wasn't very self-aware at the time. I just didn't want to believe that I didn't have a chance at making it, so I wanted to pursue it with everything I had. But fortunately, I was able to earn a pro contract in Europe, and then the rest is history.
So, a couple things. Odd story, but I was coming back from Arizona. I was down there helping one of the gyms build out, and what would it be? So O'Gorman, is it the fathers or so basically one of the guys was he retired like 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember his first name. I sat next to him. He was one of the fathers at O'Gorman.
Okay.
And it was hilarious because I was just like, hey, what do you do? And so we got to talking. I told him what I did normally, as far as like an MMA coach and things like that. And he is, I'm guessing he is in his late 70s or maybe early 80s. And it was hilarious because he's like, well, what do you think about that Amanda Nunes girl? And it was weird. Like, I was taken back, man. It was weird for me to be like, okay, well, first of all, you're like 80 years old, but you're still in the know as far as like an MMA world. And so it's funny because one of the girls that I used to coach now dates her and everything. So we were talking about that, but it was hilarious that I was just like, man, how do you know anything about this? So,
yeah, it's hilarious.
So the football world, it seems like combine and things like that, a lot is based on, okay, your performance, at a combine or your performance, strictly by the numbers. Do you think it's just that there's so many athletes, so many football players out there that they drill it down, basically to numbers, and they don't want to look at you as an overall athlete, or why is the big change there, you think?
Yeah. So, like, again, in that video, it said there's 16,000 graduating football players every single year that are trying, get done. I'd say about 8,000 are actually probably trying to make the NFL. And yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, basically the NFL is the most elite league in the world, obviously, and they have a very strict strategy and policies for what they want in players. So why would they bring in Will Powell, who's had 7 knee surgeries and who ran a 4.6 40, when they can go down the street to wherever in the U.S. and find a 6'1" receiver who runs a 4.4 40 and has never been hurt in his life?
Right.
So it's so elite. I mean, even guys who are in the league. I talk about Tyler Starr. I don't know if you know Tyler very well, but
No.
he's probably someone you should have on the show. He is from Little Rock, Iowa, lives in Sioux Falls. He played for the Atlanta Falcons for 3 years. Now he's back living here. But the most elite athlete I've ever seen in my life. 6'5", 250, shredded, not an ounce of fat. He's out on the basketball court doing 360 dunks, and he was only in the league for 3 years.
Right.
And he is the best example that I can describe of how elite that league actually is.
It's like the 1% of a 1% kind of deal.
It truly is, man. It truly is.
So, well, first of all, I want to, for new athletes coming up, things like that. I mean, like you said, you had the chance to play not only in college but also overseas, and I want to talk about that here in a little bit, playing overseas.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to me about the mindset of you going from basically high school to college and then the professional level, just the mental side of things and the way that you were able to do that, I guess.
Yeah. So my biggest advice to young athletes, and I think that coaches don't stress this enough, really across any sport, is just confidence and self-belief and believing in your own abilities. Because when I got done with high school, I went to O'Gorman. I went to USD, and although I felt like I should have been there, my freshman year I was very timid. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes, and I was like, oh well, I'm not that good yet. Well, I ended up playing as a true freshman, and it just goes to show you that you can do anything you want to do, and if you believe in yourself and you put in the work, things can manifest. Well, from freshman year to sophomore year, I started believing in myself. I started, saying I deserve to be here. I am the best. And then I went on to set records, for the next 3 years. And so the mindset is just you have to almost be naive to what other people say to you. I mean, there's obviously a factor of self-awareness, but once you identify that and you put the work in, I mean, I truly believe for the most part you can achieve anything you want to. So from high school to college, it wasn't as crazy as a transition as I would have thought. Obviously bigger, faster, stronger, but if you put in the work, you can hang with those guys. And then actually the hardest part was the mental side. It was the playbook. It was the waking up at 6 a.m. for meetings, then working out, then going to class, then coming back for meetings, then going to practice in the afternoon. The mental standpoint I think was much more difficult than anything in college. And then college to pro, again, it was just putting all my eggs in my basket for training 2-3 hours a day, trying to be as big, fast, strong as I could be. But yeah, it's you got to be all in with it. If you're trying to make the highest league in the world, you have to be all in, and everything that you do, from training to eating to studying, there's no room for error. There's no room for laziness if you want to make that highest level.
Yeah, I think you, like you said, you hit it right on the head. You need to treat your training and your athletic ability as almost a profession, and so you're going into like you said, lifting, all the mental stuff, things like that. But it's a matter of, sometimes I think I see athletes wait for their coaches to say, okay, go ahead and do this, this, and this, and this, and they're looking for guidance from their coaches when ultimately I think, athletes at that highest level, one of the biggest differences is they say, okay, I'm taking charge of this, and I'm going to make sure that my diet's right. I'm going to make sure that my lifting's right, all these other things. And then that coach becomes somebody that can help them, but ultimately they're pushing for their own career compared to, just waiting for those things to develop naturally.
Yeah, I mean, it goes down to like, how bad do you actually want to be at that level? I mean, whether it's the UFC, whether it's the NFL, I mean, how bad do you actually want it? Do you want it bad enough to where you're not going out and party on the weekends? Do you want it bad enough to where you're able to wake up at 5 a.m. and not have some of the pleasures of life that maybe your friends are having? It's a matter of work ethic. And if you really want it bad enough, I think Eric Thomas says, if you want success as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll become successful. And that's a fact. If you want to make the highest level, there's no room for error.
Yep. I 100% agree. It's that you'll definitely see the difference in those two level of athletes just by their level of, being prepared for, every single day, and make sure that those are all kind of pushed out. So Talk to me a little bit about the Europe scene. I know that you said you got to play in Germany and then Serbia and France.
Yes, sir.
We actually have a girl that trains here from Serbia, so it's
Really?
yeah. So
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, she started training here recently, and it's I think she actually just got her U.S. citizenship. But
Sweet.
Yeah. Talk to me about the countries. I mean, what's the scene like over there compared to? I know it's a relatively newer scene, but I think, like you said, a lot of folks are kind of some of the U.S. players are going over there.
Yeah, so there's actually 3 leagues in every country over there, essentially, like a Division 1, 2, 3, and the levels vary significantly. So, like, France and Serbia, they're a little bit lower levels. I would equate it to like a Division 3 level. Germany, where we played, we got to the German Bowl, the highest game in Europe. That's more like a FCS level, so Division 1 FCS, which is obviously very strong. It's like what we played at USD. Every team can only have 2 Americans on the field at one time.
Okay.
So that's the main stipulation. So
Sure.
So a lot, especially in Germany, they bring over 2 Americans on offense, 2 on defense, maybe 1 or 2 flex guys to fill spots. But they want to keep as many domestic European players playing as possible. But on top of that, it's growing. So, like, again, Germany, in the German Bowl, I think we had 20,000 fans at the game, which was fantastic. But it's growing, and depending on where you're at, you're treated like a celebrity. Other places, no one knows your name. So it's an interesting dynamic, and I'm just blessed now to be able to help grow this thing globally.
So basically on that, like that offensive side, it was probably you and Marcus, I'm guessing, for the German team. So
which is rare too, because almost every team brings over a quarterback and then a skill position. But we had the benefit of having my boy Marco. Shout out Marco if he hears this. But he's a German kid. He's one of the best quarterbacks, American or German, in Europe, and he killed it. So. Awesome.
Basically, you guys talked about it a little bit in the video, but transitioning from that, that football life to entrepreneur life, I guess you kind of saw a hole in that area. So talk to me a little bit about that, why you guys decided that was the best idea, and how that kind of got started.
Yeah. So, I think it kind of started when I guess for me, when I got done playing at USD and I didn't get a call from the NFL, and I was like, what do I do? Like, I put everything into this. I spent the last 4 months and then the last 10 years playing football to get to this point at which I fell short. So it was a very frustrating, depressing time for me. And so that's kind of where the whole thing started. I didn't know how to reach out to teams in Europe. I didn't know how to reach out to teams in the arena leagues or Brazil or anywhere. And so for me, it was like, okay, NFL, and then like, shit, like I don't know what's next. So I ended up going to Europe, fortunately, and then after 3 years, and like literally when I say it was the best 3 years of my life, it truly was. Marcus and I got together and we said, okay, we have to reproduce this. We have to help other guys that were in our situation do the exact same thing, because most guys think that it's NFL or nothing, and it's just not the case. So we started getting together. I wrote a business plan. We raised some money, and then we went all in on it, and then the rest was history from there.
So, and you talked a little bit about, okay, we made some mistakes in the beginning as far as the development. What happened there, or what?
So we raised a decent amount of money. I mean, several $100,000. And again, Marcus and I didn't have any tech experience, and neither of us had any entrepreneurship experience. So we didn't know anything about having a runway for the investment, and what if this doesn't work out? So we put all this money into this application. And to get into specifics, it was a stats app. So being able to take live stats for any football team that would sync up to our website. So it's almost a completely different model than what our original idea was.
Sure.
And it was just us being naive and wanting to do everything. And building a website and building an app is like building a house. So if you want a messaging system, it's like building a deck. And then, if you want, player profiles and team profiles, it's like building a third floor.
Right.
So the more that you want, the longer it takes and the more expensive it was. Well, Marcus and I were like, well, we want a Facebook right now in 2 months, no question. And that's what got us into trouble.
Yeah. So I mean, you can probably get that, but it's just going to cost a lot more money, and it's
it's going to cost a lot more money, and then there's just so many moving parts. So things are destined to not work out if you're trying to get it done in that short amount of time. So my recommendation to anyone who's trying to get into tech or web development or app development is you have to have a MVP, minimum viable product. So get something out there. What do your consumers actually want at the very foundation? Don't try to be sexy with all these other little things that may help the product. What's the baseline thing for us? Helping players and coaches find jobs. So letting them apply to jobs, it's the base thing. Let's build that out. And then as we get them using it, we'll add features over the course of the next several years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how's it grown in the last couple of years? Because you guys have been doing this now for 2 or 3 years?
Yeah. So this is year 3, but our platform, after we made those mistakes at the beginning, we launched Podyum Recruit about a year and a half ago. Right around November in 2016. And so about a year and a half, we already have over 15,000 athletes and coaches signed up on Podyum using the platform to find jobs. And then also we represent over 400 teams globally. So it's Europe, Brazil, Asia, Australia, arena teams in the US, and a few CFL teams.
Wow, that's crazy. So how are you building those relationships, I guess? I mean, like you said, you got 400 now. Is that just a lot of the guys at Podyum reaching out and trying to say, hey, this is something that's available to you guys. Let's go ahead and try to use it.
Yeah, well, I'd say that documentary that we filmed in Europe was really kicked it off because we were meeting our consumers, we were meeting our teams in person and providing them value. We were promoting them, growing their organization. So that's really what kicked it off. But then, it's been just a constant everyday grind on reaching out to these teams, building the relationships, and it's 6 months ago, it's like, man, I'm putting in all this work every day, and I feel like I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. But when people say that, you start to see the fruits of your labor 6, 8, 12 months down the line, it's so true, man. It is so true, because now I feel like everything that I did last year is manifesting right now, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, we when probably this was like 2006, maybe even a little bit like 2005, maybe. We used to run a website called Fight Resume, which is a similar idea, right? So trying to get
similar.
So trying to get fighters fights and trying to get just line things up very much like that. And one of the biggest struggles that I had was trying to get people to use that compared to the conventional way. And I think a lot of people, okay, yep, I'll try it, whatever, and then they don't really actually utilize the application. So was that something that you felt too in the beginning, or was that pretty, everybody was pretty excited about it?
Yeah, so for us, there's definitely like a user adoption period. And again, like that's what got us into trouble initially, is like we thought if we built this great website and put all this money into it, it just, you build it and they come.
Yep.
You don't got to do any marketing, like they just get it and they use it. And so that was kind of a shock to us when we were like, oh man, we actually got to put a lot of work. Like I got to call everyone and get them signed up.
Right.
I got to get all these teams. But for us, if you have the teams, the players and coaches will come.
Yeah.
Right. So my emphasis as the CEO is to get as many teams in our network as possible, because if the teams are there and they're providing the jobs and those opportunities are there, then the players and coaches will inevitably come.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very smart way of doing it, where you can get at least those guys on the like you said, it'll be a lot easier to get the athletes if you can have the coaches and teams already there compared to trying to do it the other way.
Yeah, yeah. It's difficult, though, because it's like your basic supply and demand, right? Like, I'm trying to get these teams on board, but if we don't have the players yet, they're like, well, why am I using this? But then if I have the players on board first and there's no teams on, then they're like, well, there's no reason for me to be here. So, yeah, fortunately, that initial part for us is done. Now it's just building out on both sides.
Sure. And so how's that success been, in the last year?
Yeah, I mean, the success has been great, and not only on the website. Well, first off, in 2017, we helped over 100 guys get signed in our first full year of launching Podyum, so we're incredibly proud of that. And what's crazy is that guys are getting signed on our platform every day and we don't even know it. Like that's how we know we're doing the right thing, right? But on top of the platform in and of itself, we're getting into camps now. So we did a camp in London last fall. We had 60 guys come perform in front of some of the top teams in Europe. We had 4 guys get signed to some of the top teams, which was an amazing. I mean, that's exactly why we did it. We had a college showcase down in Miami. So basically college players trying to make the NFL, CFL, they came down, they performed in a game. Again, for our first year, it was a huge success. We had 4 guys get invites to CFL tryouts, which we're super pumped about. And then for this fall, like now we're just hitting the ground running. We got 6 camps planned this fall in Europe, and then we'll have another showcase down in Miami for both international players and college players. So yeah, it's been a blessing, man. Things are really falling in line for us.
Awesome. We're going to go to a quick commercial break with Next Edge Academy, and then we'll be back right after that. All right, big thanks also to Team How and Science Nutrition for helping us out on the sponsorship side of things. Like I said, without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you very much. Will, talk to me a little bit about that. Do you see a lot of guys that go from the European scene to the NFL? I imagine that's probably smaller numbers, I think. But.
Yeah. Significantly smaller numbers. I mean, there's like 1 or 2 guys maybe each year. And then that's even a stretch, maybe 1 or 2 every couple years that get that opportunity. It's just that, again, for the NFL, it's, for them to take free agents, and I try to tell guys this all the time, that, once you don't make the NFL that first year coming out of college, it is nearly impossible for you to make the NFL after that. Because, again, each year you've got 16,000 college graduates that are coming up that these NFL scouts want to see. So why are they going to go with someone who's been out that they already passed on a year before? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So there's 1 or 2 guys in the past couple of years that have gone, but it's kind of exciting for international football. You got guys like Morris Boringer, who played for the Unicorns, the same team that I played for. He's a German guy. He got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings 2 or 3 years ago. Anthony Dablé from France, he got picked up by the Falcons, and he's been kind of bouncing around NFL rosters. And so NFL teams have taken a huge interest, not even necessarily in Americans playing over there, but Europeans playing over there. And obviously it's a smart business strategy, because the thing that I always say is that, for example, Morris Boringer got drafted by the Vikings. Well, guess what? Everyone in Germany now wears Morris Boringer jerseys, and they love the Minnesota Vikings. So it's a smart tactic, but you're starting to see more and more international players get signed to NFL rosters. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's maybe a slow development for the NFL getting into? I know that they play at least 1 game over there every year, trying to develop more into that international scene rather than just an American company for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I think in last year they had 4 games in the UK, and I believe they're set for the same in the UK this year, and then they'll have one in Mexico as well. And yeah, those are only going to increase. I mean, basically what's happening is the NFL has pretty much reached max capacity for the market in the U.S. Everyone in the U.S. already loves it. There's really not a lot of market share to grow here. So just like the NBA, and how the NBA is now very, very global, the NFL is trying to do the same. So the good news for us is we feel like we caught this thing on the way up, and so we're just going to keep riding it, can keep trying to help grow it, and then someday, we hope we are a direct feeder from European, Brazilian, Asian teams to go directly to the NFL.
Awesome. So winding down here, talk to me a little bit about, we talked a little bit beforehand, but just athletes that are starting out, what would you suggest for them as far as, I'm a football player that's in college. I might be able to try to go into the pros. What's your suggestion there?
Wow, where do I start?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to go to the pros, one, it's that self-awareness. So once you're in the middle of your senior season, like, you need to talk to your coaches and say, hey, have any scouts called and asked about me, asked about my numbers, asked about my performance? You need to put together a highlight tape. The second your senior season is over, your highlight tape needs to be done within 2 weeks. It's just, that's your resume. I mean, you talked about earlier how like there's a huge importance on the combine, but even scouts and agents say that 90% of these NFL guys make their decision on your film. So get your highlight tape done, and then it's about going to an all-star event. So just like ours that we hold down in Miami, coming there and performing directly in front of scouts. That's going to be probably one of your best opportunities to actually be seen if you're not at one of these big FBS schools. And then pro day. So you got to get ready for your pro day. So you got to find some awesome place to train, to get your 40 down, to get your bench up, your pro agility, all that stuff down. And that's really a 2-3 month process to get ready to go. And then pro days are in March, and then hope for the best there. If you don't get picked up or drafted by an NFL team, then that's when you would come to us and we would try to place you elsewhere.
Awesome. And advice that you would have for entrepreneurs on on that realm, because like I said, you've done that path too as well. So
yeah, my advice to entrepreneurs is getting back to the MVP. So, and then, studying your market. So do as much due diligence as you possibly can before launching your idea. Talk to the people that are actually going to be buying your product. What exactly do you want in the product? And interview and question hundreds of people if you possibly can. And then once you get that done, make your MVP. So this is the base product that we offer. These are the services that we do. And then, just continue to grow up from there and make sure that you have enough runway so that you don't run out of money. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for us when we started. We were severely undercapitalized, and I think that's the case from most small businesses. I think they think, okay, that XYZ, as long as I got this covered, well, like quadruple it or 5 times this visit. Like I said, there's going to be so many things that you don't expect to come up that come up.
Totally. And the thing that I would say to that too is like, you have to plan for the unexpected too, right? Because like you'll make a budget and you're like, okay, we're going to stick to this budget and we're going to hit our revenue numbers and the revenue numbers are going to grow X amount each month. Well, what happens if you don't grow your revenue numbers? Well, then you're going to run out of money. So like you need to have a plan A and plan B and just like, I just can't stress enough that you cannot let the thing run out of money, because then you can't pay your employees and then it's quickly to finish.
Yep, exactly. It's funny to me now. I worked in banking for 11 years, and so I was always fun with that. But then when I went to the entrepreneur side, I think everybody has this like idealistic mindset of like, oh man, you get to wake up whenever you want to, you can do whatever you want, you can go to lunches, no big deal,
dude. Yeah,
that is like the furthest thing from the truth a lot of times, especially if you're doing like the day-to-day stuff. Maybe like I have those same dreams of like, okay, if I'm you get to a millionaire or whatever, then everything gets easy. But I think once you get to that point, everything just gets way harder as well. But it's weird to me that like sometimes you're like, man, I wish I could just have a normal like 9-to-5 job where like if I work X amount of hours, I'll get X amount of dollars compared to like, man, I don't know what we're gonna make this month.
Yeah, well, and the one thing I want to touch about is exactly what you're saying too. Is like people think that entrepreneurship is this easy road. They think that, like you're saying, it's being able to sleep in the morning and make your own hours. But if you are all in on your business, it consumes you.
Yep.
And I've ridden the wave of this thing for 3 years now, and there are extreme highs and there are extreme lows. I've suffered depression and anxiety from this thing, and it's again, because it goes back to the runway thing and running out of money, waking up if I don't know if I'm gonna have enough money to pay my employees, or this was years ago when we first started, but tremendous stress. It's all on you. It's you can't blame someone else, and you're not going and ticking in a 9-to-5. You're working 60+ hours a week, but that is what it takes to get something off the ground. And if you really want to make something that's incredible and industry changing, then you got to put in the work that other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the biggest things that was eye-opening to me was, like you said, the depression side of it, where it's one thing if somebody talks negatively about the company that you work for. It's completely another thing if somebody talks negatively or if they just don't appreciate or like the work that you're putting in. That's because usually if you're in entrepreneurship, that's 100% of your heart. That's 100% of everything. So like when somebody says like, For me, if somebody's like, oh, I just don't really like MMA or anything like that, I can understand that. But when they're just like, oh, I don't like, your gym, or I don't like whatever, man, that kills me. That hurts. That makes me, like, I want to know, like, okay, exactly what are we doing wrong? Because I want to make this better, because it's, like I said, it's so attached, both the business and me as a person is one and the same. So
right. And that's something I'm working more on personally, is trying to establish that, okay, I am more than my business,
right.
And making sure that I have an identity outside of
Sure.
Podyum, because it's really easy to wake up and that's all you think about, and that's all you think people judge you as. And so, it really takes, I'm glad that I've reached to this point where, okay, I'm more than this. I'm a hardworking, kind young man who is more than just the business, because that's just not a good road to go down.
Yeah, it's exactly, the sports psychology world. Okay, you have your, your athletic identity, you have your identity as a, as a whatever, 12 other things. So it's, like you said, exactly true in the fact that you need to not only, if you're an athlete, not only have that athletic identity, but then if some, things don't go right, completely crushes you, rather than, you need to have 3 or 4 other things of not only am I a good, person, but, or like you said, all these other avenues. So.
Well, and that's something that needs to be talked about more, is that athlete identity, I think, because, for me, and I see so many, hundreds of guys who football is all they have. It's all they think that they're known as. It's all they think that they're worth.
Right.
And so many high school players and athletes of all sports and college athletes of all sports fall into that same mold. And their whole lives, they're trained and they're taught and they're told that they are an athlete first, and that everything else is kind of a byproduct of that. When I got done with a football game and I had a crappy game, I felt like I wasn't good enough to even go out and see people.
Right.
I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to talk to people about it. And that's not okay. That's not healthy. I want kids to realize they're worth so much more than the sport that they play. You're a student, you're a person in the community, and the sport is just something that you do, and don't let that define you.
Yeah. It's weird that even in that, we tell people to give, 110% every single time, blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of people take that, like you said, as putting everything into that one particular thing. But it's weird that, if you do, that can actually, negatively influence your performance, because you're worried about, okay, if I'm not great at this one thing, then I'm going to be, seen as a terrible person overall, compared to like, oh, okay, I had one bad game, where you put so much more on yourself than you probably need to. And like you said, that can be crushing to a lot of athletes.
Unquestionably. And I think that hindered my own performance as an athlete. I cared way too much about what people thought.
Yeah, I know it definitely hindered mine. I mean, it's like one of the biggest things that I can talk about is like one of my coaches is probably, by far the, best coaches in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny that when I would go out and compete, I'd go to the world championships and go out there and just crush it, and win fast. And then I would go and compete where he would be able to watch me at some like local small event and just get destroyed, just on a matter of like, oh, okay, I don't want to look terrible in front of him, and then just shut me down completely. It's weird. So. But
no, yeah, it's not good, and it's something that I think that coaches have to do a better job of teaching and implementing within their practices, and just building these kids up, giving them as much confidence as they can. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, like, they didn't second guess themselves when they shot the ball. They didn't care about, people judging them for taking too many shots, and that's what it takes to be great.
Yeah,
so
it sounds like a lot of those mindsets not only started to help you in sports, but now they're starting to help you in the entrepreneurship side of things too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta have a strong will to get through this entrepreneurship world. So
well, winding down, thank you very much for coming in. Maybe we'll have another talk about kind of the mental side of things as well, because like I said, it seems like that's something that's big to you. But first of all, thank you very much for coming on the show. And like I said, hope to have you again soon.
Thank you, Bruce. It was a pleasure, man. I love what you guys are doing. So keep it rolling.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, man. That was awesome.